Obsessed with real estate since he was 14 years old, to closing $7.7 million in real estate in his first year as an agent, Paul Haley shares his incredible story of how he took the Arizona real estate market by storm. Right out of high school, Paul broke into the luxury market with purpose and passion. Stick with us to hear how he focused on learning about construction and contracts, focused on building relationships with his clients first and foremost. This is an episode you just can't miss.
Welcome to Unlocking Real Estate, My First Commission, where we dive into real stories, big wins, and early lessons learned from highly successful rookie real estate agents and brokers. This is the series where we explore how real estate transforms lives, one home at a time, by sitting down each week with a new agent or broker who has found incredible success in their first year. Your hosts are instructors and leaders at Colibri Real Estate School, one of the largest real estate educators in the nation, where we focus on helping people like you get started or find continued success in their careers.
Hello, and welcome to Unlocking Real Estate, My First Commission. My name is Tina Lapp, and I'm your host. I have over 30 years of real estate education experience helping people enter and thrive in their new real estate career.
My name is Giovanna Mancuso. I'm your co-host. I have over 10 years of real estate experience, but I am also a real estate instructor for the state of New York and the state of Florida.
We are here today with Paul Haley. Paul, will you take a moment to introduce yourself, where you live, and what company you're with?
Yeah, so I'm Paul Haley. I live in Scottsdale, Arizona, and I'm currently with eXp Realty.
All right, Paul. So let me ask you, what were you doing before you became a real estate agent?
So before I became a real estate agent, I had finished out high school. I was big in sports, and then I took a gap year to France. And while I was there, it really cleared my mind to kind of, figure out what I wanted to do. So, and then I came back and I was like, I want to start real estate.
Good for you, and you saw beautiful architecture, just like real estate. So
Plenty of good
got you
architecture
in
over
there. Yep.
there. Yeah.
So what inspired you to pursue a career in real estate?
So a little backstory I'll give you. So when I was 14, I moved to Scottsdale. And I remember when I moved here at the time, my best friend lived in a neighborhood, and we would always take walks in there. It's called Silverleaf. It's a beautiful community out here, very well known. And I just distinctly remember one day I was walking through there and I was like, I'm going to sell homes like this one day.
Wow.
And then I just kept going through high school, then took my gap year. And when I fast forward to my gap year, I was in my room in my apartment building at 10 p.m. at night. And I still was thinking about that all the time.
So as young as 14.
And I really just remember that. And that's really the moment that clicked for me. And then it kind of just stuck. So yeah.
That was that moment that you made that decision. You came back from France and you said,
Let's
that's
get
it.
after
I
it.
remember that core memory at 14. And
Yeah, exactly.
real estate.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
So, and now it's so funny because it's a little foreshadowing. I'll give you a little part of that. My current mentor, which we'll get to later, he actually, my favorite home in that neighborhood, he actually sold. And I never knew that until I joined him.
Wow.
And it's just like it all kind of came together, and it was special.
Like it was meant.
Yeah.
Like it was meant to be. Yep.
Right.
That's great. That's great.
Right.
That's incredible, Paul. And you are unique because not that many people at 14 years old know what they want to do, let alone it's real estate, right? So I love that you're following your dream. Here you are, you're a year out of high school, you're back from France, you know you want to sell real estate. Walk us through the process of getting your license.
Yeah. So I came back at a little before Thanksgiving. And I had asked a friend who I knew had his real estate license, just like he was doing pretty good, where he got his education. And he was like, yeah, I went to Arizona School of Real Estate and Business. And he's like, do the in-person, because he knew me and he knows I'm very visual. I like to ask a lot of questions. I was like, okay, I signed up for the course. And it was the 3-week course that was, I think, 4 days a week in person. And then I went there and I knocked that out. The only issue was that I finished right before Christmas. So then they had some time off with Christmas and New Year's. And then I studied for the test and then started test taking. And I feel like the in person was really helpful simply because I could ask a lot of questions to the teachers. So, yeah.
Yeah. So you went through, how long did it take you to get through your classes? What'd you say?
It took exactly, so 3 weeks to get through the classes, but in total, to get my license, it took 3 months. So
Okay.
it was November to February, from the day I started to the day I got my license. But then I made my license active to a brokerage on the 15th of March.
Okay.
So that's kind of,
Okay. What
yeah,
were the biggest challenges going through classes?
definitely for me. So I'm not naturally a great test taker. And I remember at the beginning, I was just trying to memorize flashcards or just trying to do this, and I was doing too much. Like, you just need to focus on one thing. So I was like, okay. So I talked to Jenny Hogan, who's, their director there, and she's like, you just need to read the book. She's like, the book is the best thing to read. She's like, just read the book. It was after like my fourth time getting failing the test. So I
Yeah.
read the book, and then, come my sixth try, I passed. And that really helped because I would just go back and ask the teachers, like, hey, can you re-explain this? Like, and they just were helpful with that. And if I had done that from the beginning, just taking the core course book, I think I would have passed much faster. But I
Yeah.
was failing once, so I was going from flashcards to this online course and all this. So, yeah.
And the fact of the matter is, the test is the first barrier, but it's no indication about your success in real estate. Obviously, look at you now. So,
Yeah.
congratulations for not giving up and getting through that exam. Um, I think it's really inspiring to know because not everyone passes the first time, but getting those study habits in place for sure. Congratulations to you.
And to anybody out there, who feels like testing is their bar in this industry, it's totally not. I mean, and if anything, you should look at it like a barrier to entry because this business is not easy. So, you know, look at it like that if you're failing. It's just the first step to many successes.
It's great.
So, what were your expectations going into your first year as an agent?
So, my expectations, I actually get overwhelmed when I set too many big goals. So, it was to learn one new thing a day. And whether that
Still,
was,
it's a lofty goal. Still, one new thing every
well,
day.
between all the construction in the homes and between talking to people and never doing sales, never coming from a previous job, I was like, well, I'm going to learn one new thing a day, but I'm just going to section it out. So for 1 month, learn some people skills, read a
Right.
book. For 1 month, learn, about construction of homes, architecture. And I kind of just did that because it wasn't as overwhelming to watch a 15-minute YouTube video a day or something rather than look at a number that says 20 million in sales or something. And I'm like, oh, how do I get there?
Right.
So
Right.
that really helped me. And I felt like it compounded. It was like baby steps. Um, but yeah,
Now, are you involved in new construction? Is that what you're saying?
I'm not, but I'm specializing in the luxury area.
Right.
But you get a lot of people, especially in the luxury market, who might want to come into a $2 million home, but they want to reconstruct it. And you have
Got
to know contractors, you have to know all these different people. And some of these people have lived in 5 to 10 homes. And I'm like, I have to have that mind to see through the home just as well as they do.
Right. Right.
And also understanding them though as a person. So like yin and yanging the two really helped a lot. And I also just find it fun, like there's so many new things. It's like you can never not learn in this business.
Right. It's true. It's absolutely
So,
true.
yeah,
So, how long after you obtained your real estate license did you do your first transaction? So, how long did that take
six
from when the time?
months.
6 months
And
for
I
your first.
think a big part of that had to do with I was at a big brokerage at first and it seemed all great. It wasn't a good fit for me. And I never had somebody to go to answer my questions.
Mhm.
I mean, I think I bug my mentor now. I just ask him questions all day. But like I I'll give you a little backstory to that. I know you're asking about how long it took. So it took 6 months. But from my old brokerage, I had clients I met, and I was showing them a $1.7 million home.
Hmm.
It was going to be my first transaction, but honestly, I had no idea what I was doing. So the listing agent of that home was like, hey, we just lost out on this deal because you didn't know what you were doing. It's true. He gave me some grace, and he appointed me towards a mentor because he's older. So he was like, I'm going to pour you towards a guy who's a little younger than me, but it's going to teach you.
Right.
And he kind of gave me the in to this very elite brokerage that not people can just come to.
Right.
And then told that guy when I joined, I said, if you answer my questions, I will have a deal for you in 1 month. And then he answered all my questions for the first 2 weeks, and I had a deal.
Wow.
And just because he was letting me pick off his ear. So I feel like that, just having somebody to answer your questions is like the biggest thing. And he had no lead generation he was giving. He was just helping. So
So let me ask you, you're in the luxury market. How did you get into that luxury market? Like,
open houses. So
so say, explain that to me. Open houses, what does that mean?
So you can pick your price point at open houses for free,
Okay.
especially in my market. So there's so many top producers.
Hmm.
If their sellers are okay with it, they don't want to sit in open house on a Saturday. And I'm
Right.
like, I pitch it to them like, I'm helping you get your house out there, and you can take your day off if you let me see your open house. Okay,
Right.
cool.
Right.
So I met a lot of people through that at that price point, because usually if somebody's coming through a $2 to $3 million home, they're not just looking at, to purchase a $500,000 home,
Right.
it's just,
Right.
so that really helped. And then it also helped me learn the market,
Hmm.
because you have to know everything within a 2 mile radius of what's for sale, and you have to know for me, it's golf communities. You have to know how to take them to the clubhouse. You're not just selling what they can see on Zillow.
Right.
And I felt like if I can really niche in on that, because that neighborhood I walked in when I was a kid, that was my,
Yeah.
my dream,
Right.
that I can niche in on that. And luxury is what I want to do. And my age, was the only big obstacle, I would say.
Got it.
So
So how did you market yourself as that new agent? How did you create that credibility to people?
I said, listen, this is my mentor's Darren. I said, Darren has experience, but I have energy. So I said, if you want an agent who can get both, you'll get one and the same. And every single time, I would always have him meet with them first with me, and then they'd never have to meet with him again. And I could take over, just
Yep.
because it builds the credibility of the experience.
Hmm.
But then the energy that I have, he doesn't have time for. So they want
Right.
my time.
Right.
So
Right.
they would actually end up appreciating when I can run out on a Sunday afternoon.
Right.
So,
Call you at the last minute and say,
yeah,
"Hey."
and it really, I'd say I lose most of the time on that sometimes, but it's just a numbers game. I think everybody actually loses when you look at the numbers.
Right.
But
Right.
I was like, I'm just going to meet enough people, and a lot of those people were probably in my shoes at one point, whether they made a business or something.
Right. Right.
So,
So what marketing channels or techniques do you use that you found were effective for you?
so the open house, I have a whole process. That was
Mhm.
really my main thing.
Right.
On top of that, I right now in the future, as I get more people, this won't work, but I personally follow up with everybody,
Okay.
like personalized texts. Like, hey, I love talking about your daughters who live here. And I know that's not really marketing, but that's adding that extra hint of not me
Mhm.
putting them into the CRM and just getting a drip campaign,
Right. Right.
and then on top of that, hey, you want to be on my newsletter? I have off market properties that you can see. My Darren has some coming up. I sometimes do.
Right.
And then they're like, oh, yeah, of course. So then they're always thinking of me if they live
Right.
in California or if they live somewhere else. And I felt like that helped a lot, because I'm not just saying, hey, I'm just following up. I'm actually giving them good info.
Right. So it's that
And that
person.
was my strategies. Nothing too crazy, just plain and simple.
Any social media do you use?
So I just started doing that now.
Okay.
At the beginning, I was like, everyone has a bias around this. I was like, there's no point in me doing social media if I don't have credibility or know what I'm doing.
Right.
because I get a lead from social and then I take them out and then I'm like, you know? So I
Yep.
was like, I'm going to put my energy towards learning the people, learning the product. And then I'm eventually going to transition into the social media.
Right.
And that is currently what I'm working on right now. I'm trying to build more of a social presence.
Okay.
And yeah, so.
So branding, did you do any print advertisings? Like how did they, to create that brand so they know we can go to Paul for luxury?
Yes. So I'm a part of the EXP luxury program.
Okay.
And I also built my whole own website. And I didn't go through a company. I went through Squarespace, but I simply did that because I wanted it to be Paul Haley personal brand, not just
Right.
another EXP Realty luxury website.
Right. Right.
And I really just hammered hard about what I care about on there, what it is, and I made like a local guide because it doesn't matter what you're at, like people who want to visit Scottsdale, what does Paul Haley like to eat? If you like that, I'll show them what I like.
Right.
But then they can get a sense of kind of how I am through my local guide. Um, so that was a big part. So like I have a contact card. I'm just going to take my phone out for a sec. And what I do at an open house is I'll go on my contacts and they'll say, hey, can I have your card? And I use the virtual contact card.
Yeah.
And I say, hey, this has my website. This has my reviews. This has everything on here. You can click it and look at it right now. And then I'll usually leave a link to off-market properties as well. And they're like, yeah, send that to me. And I've utilized that for everything. And I found that the most successful for my marketing.
So you get lead generation from that website too?
Currently, no, because I'm not paying for that, but I do from my open houses just because it builds the credibility. So I would say, like I encourage everybody I meet at open house, like, hey, please check out my website. There's just some good things on there. And that sparks curiosity, which gives me leads.
So do you think that those clients that you have, are a lot of them from out of Arizona? Like they're coming to Scottsdale as their next step kind of thing?
So it's a little bit mixed. I've had a few California clients that I'm currently working with. I think it's
Right.
because of the fires and all that. And then I've had some East Coasters, and then I've had some locals. And they're like, I've used the same realtor for 30 years. We want to use somebody new because you got this new energy.
That's
So
great.
it's been a little bit of a mix, but I'd say right now I'm working more with relocation people.
That's why that
And
guide is probably working really well for you because people who are from California or from the East Coast, they want to know what I'm moving here, what's here. And if you're providing that, that's a great tool for
yeah, and
them.
have either of you been to Scottsdale?
I have
Yeah.
not.
Okay, so when you come, everyone thinks of like the main part of Scottsdale, which would be like Camelback Mountain or right by Paradise Valley.
Right.
But there's a
Right.
whole north side, and most people miss that. So
Mhm.
like I always encourage people to go up there because it's a little more secluded, yet you're only 20 minutes from everything.
Right.
So that has all that on there and stuff.
So your target then, that specific audience is right now you have some out of state, but you do both, correct?
Correct. Correct. And honestly, like anybody that wants my help, I'm never going to turn down anybody, even if it's not a luxury home, just because I really take a lot of pride in my work. And if I get the chance to work with somebody, then I'd love to.
Great. Great.
So, yeah.
Paul, talk a little bit about your open houses. You said you have a whole process. I had the
Yes.
opportunity to talk to a couple of folks about you, and they brought up a few things that are really unique to you and the passion and the energy you put behind your open houses. We talk a little bit more about your process.
Yeah. So I'll explain it in two sectors because
Okay.
the golf communities, they don't allow signs. But then if you go down to like, central Scottsdale, some of them are huge estates, but they don't actually have an HOA.
Yeah.
And you can put as many signs as you want. So the first thing I did is, even though it doesn't look luxury, I bought bright yellow signs. And I made them, I like A-frames, 3x3. They're just huge. And I have 14 of those, and I do it to the point where it annoys people. And they see so many signs. They're like, I already saw this house online, but what's the ruckus about? And then from there, whether I have signs up, if it's if it's a not golf community, or if it is, they come in. I never do a sign-in sheet, simply because people want, I feel like when I do that, people feel like this, they feel crowded, and why am I jumping on them right away? So I say, hey guys, would you like me to take you around the house or not? They'll say yes or no. And then I'm like, okay, well, if you end up liking this, I have a ton on the house that most people don't know about, and I'll tell you after. So then they get a sense of the house, and then they come to me with the questions after. And then we start talking. And then I usually try to build enough rapport to where they ask me, hey, can I have your card? And then I'm like, yeah, I have my virtual contact card, and I'll look right at my phone and I won't look up. And I'm like, what's your number? And then they're like, thank you for talking. We love all this info. And then they go from there. And I also keep the off-market properties. I keep a binder of it. So then, if they want, to see something that they haven't seen, it just gives that extra edge, even if the property doesn't, match what they want. So I do that. And then I really just try to learn about them, Like, I think a lot of people, they walk in and they expect a quick sale right away, but you really just got to get to know people and care about them, you know? So I ask, like, where are you from? What do you do? Oh, that's awesome. I'm not really talking about the house unless they ask me. So that's the approach I take.
So you're really building relationships with people.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
really, and
Definitely.
I would imagine there are some you've met at open houses or some of the other things you've been doing that you continue to stay in touch with and maybe have even become part of your social network.
Yes, sometimes I go out to lunch with them, even though
Yeah.
I haven't worked with them, just because I appreciate them and they appreciate me. And honestly, what's the coolest thing, especially with my age, I can learn so much from people. I always can, but like somebody who's 70 or 80 who's done multiple careers and lived a life, like they enjoy teaching me, and I'm appreciative of it. So yeah, you're completely right. And that's actually how we'll get into later. I got a $3 million sale simply because of that.
I
So,
love that. And so, um, why don't you jump into that? Tell us how you got that sale.
okay. So I met her at an open house.
Mhm,
She had an agent who she had met the week before,
mhm.
but she ended up giving me her number just because she liked my energy. But you can't encroach, so I wasn't gonna like step on the listing agent's toes. All I did was send her things in her neighborhood or around her area, like, hey, have you done this? And we went out to lunch and we didn't really talk real estate ever. Her home was listed 6 months with one of the best agents in our community. Like, she's amazing. Um, it ends up going expired one day, and she just calls me. She's like, hey, you have been great at following up. Come list my home. She's like, if you work that hard to get to know me, what makes me think you're not going to work that hard on my house? And it sold in 3 days, simply because I took a different strategy that I saw that the other agent didn't hit the home. She lived on a very unique lot, and the agent didn't sell that lot. She sold the inside of the home. And I was like, if somebody can see this lot, it's in central Scottsdale. It's probably the most private lot you'll get in the area. And that was my video. I was like, guys, look at this lot. That's what you're buying. And it works. And she was so happy. And she sends me newsletters for every week of stuff, she reads and stuff. So
Yeah.
it's great.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Um, and I understand there's a story I heard from a couple of folks about a bookmark that you did. Is there a story about something you sent out? Someone came to an open house with something you had sent out just to meet you? Does that
Bookmark.
sound?
Wait, can you a bookmark, meaning like
I don't know. It was something that you had sent out, something, a marketing piece.
yes, 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 I'll talk about this. Sorry.
Yeah,
Yes.
I
Yes, I
would
know
love to
exactly.
hear about that. Will you talk about that?
So I do a lot of handwritten notes.
Okay.
I like a few thousand. And I was doing a lot more when I was less busier because all you do is prospect and you're not busy. And a community called DC Ranch, which is adjacent to Silverleaf, which is that community I love to walk in. Um, I sent mailers out when I closed on the $3 million home. Hey, just close. And they call me and they're like, you can take it as a pocket listing. It's about a $3.5 million home in the community. And okay, I'm like, okay. And I was like, this is my opportunity to be in a community with like all of probably the top 10 best agents in the state. And at the time, I emailed, I went to our MLS and I pulled up every single agent email and I CC'd everybody on this group email, like everybody. And I let them know I have this off market property. And for an off market pocket listing to get 6 showings in 1 week, my mentor was like, I have never heard of that. I didn't know. I was like, okay, whatever. So I got 6 showings on this pocket listing. And then they eventually like, Paul, you've worked so hard. Let's take it live. And I get everything to get it ready. And unfortunately, I got like a letter. They were like, hey, this isn't going to work out. We want to use our family member, yada, yada, yada. And that was definitely a lesson I learned because I worked extremely hard for them. And I couldn't believe that we had everything done, but I'm not going to fight somebody who doesn't want to work with me. So I'll cancel a listing because there's no point with having mad sellers,
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
that's the story with that. And, no bad blood between them. They're great people, but, I hope in the future that, I've learned from that and I know
Mhm.
how to handle it next time.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, it's the world of real estate can be tricky for sure, and,
yeah.
you work hard and there's not always a guarantee on the other end, but it is a numbers game, and if you do enough work and you're out there enough and you build the relationships, it comes and you're a great, example of that,
Yeah,
so
thank you.
today, yeah. So today, who's your like? Do you have a mentor, a support system, family, real estate company? Who's supporting you?
I'm blessed that I have a great support system at home. I pay for all my own things, but I still live at home because there's no point for me to move out yet. I do have a soon to be fiance, which is exciting. That's what real estate's blessed me
Congratulations.
with. Um, but no, my family, my mentor, Darren Tackett, and then I'd say my virtual mentor, Ryan Serhant. Yeah. I mean, I've taken his course for about 6 months and it's just elevated the way I think. And that's my big support system. I'm blessed. I mean, my family is great. They're so happy. So yeah.
That's great. And it sounds like you are constantly learning. Like everywhere you go, you've got a formal mentor, but you're listening, you're learning, you're talking to people, you have this thirst for learning, which sounds like you have every intention of continuing.
Yes, definitely. I mean,
Yeah.
like, it's just, you wake up and I feel like everyone has something that wakes them up in the morning. And for me, it's like, whether it's professional or personal, you can
Yeah.
always be working on something to be a better human or better in your profession.
Yeah.
And I think like, it just inspires me. I don't know. I like it. Like, I just have this drive to do it. I just love
Yeah.
it. So,
That's great. And you said something earlier that, you found yourself at a larger brokerage, which works for a lot of people. But for you, you had a lot of questions. You wanted somebody there
yep.
that could answer your questions that really became sort of the wind beneath your wing. So you could get your questions answered and move quickly, right? I mean, is that
Yeah.
really something that helped sort of catapult you?
Yeah, I would say so, but I think that, with my situation, that since I'm able to, I know some people have to pay bills right away, and I understand that. But I
Mhm.
think since my parents were treating this like my college, that I had the opportunity to go somewhere to build business naturally rather than have to get on a Zillow leads and give away a lot of money and learning to just put food on the table for somebody. So I was blessed in that way. So I was like,
Yeah.
why? I need to go somewhere where instead of taking 7 years to learn something, it can take me one because I
Yeah.
have the opportunity. So why not use it? Um, and that was my thoughts behind it. And at the
Hmm.
time, it was a big decision because my dad wasn't in real estate or anything. So, you have a lot of people like, no, stay where you're at. It's just not working yet. And I just knew from a gut instinct that it wasn't right, but I could make it better.
So, what would you say was your biggest challenge during your first year?
My age,
Yeah.
definitely.
And
I think that,
establishing credibility or
yeah, I think that goes one and the same. I think
yeah.
people look at me sometimes, but then I have to show them that I always tell them I'm like, age is a number, but maturity can happen at any age. And I'm like, you know, I might be turning 21 in the summer, but I will, I have the energy and I will be there for you if it's 12 a.m. or 1 p.m. So, and I think once people get a feel of that, they forget and they just
Yeah.
look at me, normal. So, yeah.
Yeah. It's just great story and so inspirational. Is there anything like we all make mistakes, we learn, like everybody starts somewhere, right? Are there any memorable or funny experiences from your early days when you were still sort of learning the business?
Every day I'm still failing forward. But no,
Good for you.
um,
Hey.
no, I think that a funny experience, a funny experience would be probably just like when I had my first open house.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if this is like, necessarily funny, but I had no idea what I was doing and I knew it. So I was just throwing any question at anybody. And I think sometimes they were shocked because buyers come in and they're used to other open houses.
Yeah.
So I think that, it might not be necessarily funny, but just like failing, the point is failing is a part of it. And you have to fail to get the answers, one way or another. Like that $3.5 million home from the postcard, that could have happened in 3 years from now if I didn't, experience it. So I think having that mindset just,
Yeah.
helped a lot. That just means I'm one step closer to it really happening.
Yeah. And I appreciate you sharing those vulnerabilities a little bit because we have a lot of listeners who maybe they are already licensed, they've already passed the test, but getting started, the fear of doing something wrong or the fear of failing often stifles people that they don't get started. And if they can just overcome that and know, like some of the most successful people out there have made mistakes and they didn't know when they went to their first open house and it's okay that you don't know. Everyone starts somewhere, and really having that mentor, someone to ask questions to, is really, really important.
Yeah, and something like I reiterate in my brain all the time is if I know that I'm 20 no's away from my dream life, then I'll try to get the no's as fast as I can. So I
Right.
think that I think about that a lot because it keeps me going forward. And there's definitely hard days. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, there are days where like I'm like, do I even know what I'm doing? And then I'm like, yes, I do. I just have
You
to
do.
recenter. So yeah, that's why Sundays are important to me. Like after open houses and helping people on a Sunday, like I take a few hours to hang out with my family and just like, take some time to reset, which is important. So
Yes.
yeah.
All right, so let me ask you, where do you see yourself 5 years from now? We're talking about now, but let's talk about 5 years from now. Where do you see yourself?
I see myself being the best young luxury real estate agent in Scottsdale. That's where I see myself.
That's
And
great.
when people think of me, they think of somebody that will be at their side and have more energy than anybody else they work with.
That's great. Now, do you have any tips or tricks that you'd like to share with those aspiring real estate agents just getting into the business?
Yes, ask a lot of questions. I know that's cliche. Ask a lot of questions. If you don't know something and a client asks you and you don't know, you say, hey, I don't know this, but I'll get it to you as soon as possible. because somebody will respect that a lot more than you making it up. And then they figure out you're wrong because then the
Right.
trust is gone.
Right.
So that's a
Right.
tip. And then another tip I would say is I know everybody says get on the social media, but I'd say learn your contracts, learn talking to people, then worry about the social media because it doesn't matter if you don't have your credibility in actually selling homes.
Right. If you don't know what you're talking about, you don't know
Right.
what it's
And if you're going to market somebody else's home, then go to somebody else's open house. So, be in front of belly to belly. That's where you'll
Yeah,
learn the best.
that's great. Great advice.
Really good advice and very unique advice, I think, a little bit from what I've heard from other people. Like
Thank you.
that's great. And I love it. And you have such a style about you and you're very methodical and thoughtful and purposeful. It's really refreshing and very mature. I'm not surprised that you've had such success. So we're gonna jump into our lightning round, get to know you a little bit, have some fun.
Wait, let's do it.
See, let's do it. 60 seconds or less, just a couple fun questions. Let's start with a book or a podcast that you've either read or listened to that you'd recommend for the audience and why.
A book I would recommend, How to Win Friends and Influence People. I live by the golden rule, treat people how you want to be treated. And I think that everybody wants to feel a certain way in how they're treated, whether it's in business or life. And that book, get the updated version. It's great. I mean, I'm reading it right now. I reread chapters all the time. One thing that people love to hear is their name. And that's the first lesson I learned in that. Always use people's names.
That's a great one. That's a great one for sure. If we had a time machine and you could go back to the day you started this journey, what would you do differently or what advice would you give yourself?
Don't be so hard on yourself and be patient. I think patience is like, I always want to go, go, go. So I would get so down on myself when something wasn't happening.
Yeah.
And I think that I started looking up entrepreneurs. Like it took Elon Musk 10 years. It took people years to become something. It took Bill Gates years, and I think that once I realized that, I just was like, stay patient.
Yeah. That's another good one. If you could have dinner with one person, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
I would have dinner with, can I do two people?
Sure. Make it a party.
We'll do Ryan Serhant and my great grandmother. She's 106 years old. So she's alive and Ryan's alive. And I would have dinner with both of them because my great grandmother is a very wise individual. And Ryan is just, he's an inspiration to me. So
That's great. Would you have dinner with them together or separately?
honestly, together, I think it'd be a great time.
Yeah, right?
We'd all chat it up.
I'm looking for an invite to that one.
Oh man, yeah. We'll get years of experience between everyone.
Right? Right? We'd have all kinds of generations there. That would be great. A great time.
Yeah.
Talk to us about what you did yesterday. What did you do for work yesterday?
Yesterday, I showed a home and I'm working on building my social media studio at home. So I'm trying to get more into filming social media and I'm trying to find a space to do it. And that's what I've been working on. So yeah.
That's great. Building your business, showing a home. That's always good things as you're working on your business there.
And one thing I'd say to the audience, I know not to go over the 60 seconds, but
Yeah.
something that's helped me, if you want to build a social media studio, just get it all done, set some time aside, because I've realized that if I set time aside, time block it, then it gets done way faster. So whether that's prospecting, you need to set up a social media studio or something else, just time block it.
Yeah. Yeah. And now that you mention that, is there do you go into your week sort of with a plan on how you're going to spend your time and how much do you plan out your week?
Yeah, so 4 times a week, open house minimum, try to do 5, 2 hours minimum for each. And what I'll do is I'll always set that aside as my green time, prospecting time. And that's usually in my community with the luxury buyers, they come out about 1 to 4. So I'll do 1 to 4. I find afternoon works better. And then everything else, I'll work around that. Like this podcast, for example, I would put that earlier in the morning, then go out, do an open house, and
Yeah.
work from there.
Yeah. It's great having a plan. We adjust sometimes as needed, but going in with
Right.
a plan and knowing
Yeah.
when to modify that plan. Yeah, that's
Right.
great. Paul, where can listeners and viewers connect with you, follow your journey, and reach out to you?
So they can find me on my Instagram. It's paul.haley. The last name is spelled Haley. Or they can find me on my website and subscribe to my newsletter at haley-housing.com.
That's great. And Paul, is there anything else that you want to make sure that you share with our listeners and viewers before we sort of wrap things up?
Be persistent, stay patient, and smile every day, and you'll be great. So, yeah.
That's great.
Yep.
That's great. Paul, thank you for spending time with us today and sharing your journey. I know your story will inspire those interested in starting a career and those trying to launch their new career in real estate. You've told us a lot of great things and a lot of advice and you know, the smile. That's so important to always smile, for sure. Thank you for sharing your journey with us.
Of course. It was my pleasure. Thank you, guys.
Thanks for tuning in to Unlocking Real Estate, My First Commission. We hope today's stories and insights inspired you to take that next step in your real estate journey. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an episode, or head over to our channel to see some of the other content we've produced. We'd also love to hear from you. Drop a comment below with your biggest takeaway or a question for our next guest. If you have a recommendation for someone we should interview, please send a note to unlockingrealestate@colibrirealestate.com.